Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today I'll be playing another premiere draft of Innistrad Crimson Vow. Without further ado, let's get into our Pack 1, Pick 1. We've got one pretty sweet common here. Diregraph Scavenger just plays super well in the format. There's a lot of graveyard recursion and stuff. This can hit the board, exile something from a grave, drain your opponent for some life, and be a Death Toucher to trade into anything later, which is nice. So I like Diregraph Scavenger a lot. However, we've got a pretty sweet rare as well. Falconwrath Forebear. This card does not play well in the defensive because it can't block, but if you're aggressive at all, this is going to be really nice. A 3/1 flyer beats your opponent down pretty quickly and it gives you blood tokens as you hit them. Then you can sacrifice those bloods to reanimate this from grave. There's also Alluring Suitor, which is a very, very strong uncommon, maybe even better than the Falconwrath Forebear. It's very, very close. But I'm going to go with the rare there. The Alluring Suitor is if you attack with 2 creatures in one combat, you get to flip it into a 3/3 trample that has like a double fire breathing ability, and you get 2 mana the turn you flip it. So I think the Alluring Suitor is definitely probably like tied with Forebear for power at least. Maybe even better, but we'll take the rare to start things off, get some blood token generation and a nice aggressive evasive threat. For Pack 1, Pick 2, we have a Braid, which is very efficient removal in red. Probably the best card in the pack, although there's also a Voltaic Visionary out of red, which is a sweet card. 2 mana for a 3/1, and it can draw you a card. You do have to shoot yourself in the face to draw that card and tap this, but that can be pretty good value later on if you have the life to spare. Gift of Fangs is an okay removal spell. But it doesn't work against every deck. If you're playing against black-red vampires, you're going to have a really bad time with this. So I think a Braid is just probably the best, most flexible card to take here. And that's what I'll scoop up for now. Pack 1, Pick 3, we've got a Biolume Egg out of the uncommons, which is really nice with the Exploit mechanic. Exploit in this format is a mechanic that makes you sacrifice one of your creatures to get a powerful effect. The Biolume Egg is the perfect card to sacrifice to those kind of effects, because when you sacrifice this, you get to bring it back to the board as an even better creature, a 4/4 that can get unblockability late in the game for like a final swing for lethal. So I like Biolume Egg a lot for the blue-black decks in the format. I think I'll scoop that up. There's also Kindly Ancestor, which is a great common. It can attack and block pretty decently pretty early with that high toughness, and it gains you life while it's doing so. And whenever it does trade off and die, then you can attach lifelink to another one of your creatures. So really, really good card for just giving you a huge pocket of life in any game. So probably the next best card, but we'll take Biolume Egg for now. Now we have Syncopate, which is a solid counterspell in blue. The fact that it exiles is great. We have Lantern Bearer, which is a phenomenal blue common. 1 mana for a 1/1 flyer is fine, but it also gives you that aura from the graveyard. 3 mana to give any creature +1/+1 in flying. It's a really, really nice additional aura to tack on to the Lantern Bearer, because putting +1/+1 in flying on pretty much any creature turns it into a big deal. Any size of flyer is going to be a big deal throughout the game, so I like Lantern Bearer a lot. Screaming Storm is fine, but it is a 6 mana card, which is pretty replaceable. You don't want too many of those in your deck. And Mischievous Catgeist, I just find I have a pretty difficult time getting in for that combat damage super often. I think Lantern Bearer is the most consistently powerful card in the pack. It also plays really well in the same kind of decks that would use a Biolume Egg. Anything that's going to be exploiting is going to be a big fan of the Biolume Egg, because we sack it and then flip it into that 4/4. And it's going to be a big fan of the Lantern Bearer, because it's a cheap creature to get on the board, and a creature that we're very okay with sacrificing because it gives us value in the graveyard as well. So speaking of exploit, for Pack 1, Pick 5, we now have a Diver Scab, which is a perfect card to scoop up here. Very powerful exploit trigger. If we sacrifice a creature when this enters the battlefield, we get to put an opposing creature on the top or bottom of our opponent's library. So kind of a removal spell there. Our opponent can redraw the creature and replay it, but it slows them down quite a bit, so I like Diver Scab a lot. If Diver Scab weren't in that pack, the Foreboding Statue, the colorless uncommon there, is a nice flexible card. It's mana fixing and mana ramp for any deck. But with Diver Scab, we've got a pretty great start to blue exploit shenanigans, whether that be blue-black or any other blue archetype. So nothing great here, pack 1, pick 6. Courier Bat is a strong card, but it's kind of secretly a black, white, gold card. There's just not going to be a lot of life gain if we're playing blue-black. So I don't think it'll be great in the direction we're drafting right now, but it still might be my favorite card out of the pack. Hookhand Mariner is just a beefy creature in general for its mana cost. Maybe scoop that up. Or we could take Wedding Invitation as the most flexible card. I guess I'll just go for the Hookhand Mariner. There was a red removal spell in that pack as well, but it was a 5 mana 4 damage removal spell. Quite a bit less efficient than like a 2 mana 3 damage spell like a Braid. So not a big fan of that removal spell. Now we see a Nurturing Presence and Angelic Quartermaster out of white, which are both very strong white cards. I think Angelic Quartermaster, probably the strongest card here, probably what we take, but it's a decent sign towards white being open. Maybe we head in the blue-white Spirits, blue-white Flyers, and Disturb direction with cards like Lantern Bearer and Angelic Quartermaster. Play a bunch of Flyers and a bunch of Disturbed creatures that come back from grave. There's an All-in-Block Escort here, which, if I remember correctly, there's not too many ways to get +1/+1 counters going around. Yeah, we've got Angelic Quartermaster, but the primary way to work with this is with the Training mechanic, which is in green and white. That is the +1/+1 counter color pair. So I think I'd rather just take a Gutter Skulker here. It's a bit slow. A 4 mana 3/3 is not the greatest, but it has a pretty powerful effect and that extra value of being able to come back from the grave. So I like Gutter Skulker here. And Consuming Tide is just kind of a weird, everybody picks up their cards sort of thing, which isn't the strongest card in a pretty quick 1v1 format like draft. Alright, this pack's pretty empty now. I guess we could take a Lantern of the Lost, which is similar to Wedding Invitation in that we can put it in any deck and it'll just replace itself and draw a card. But ideally we end up just cutting that. Definitely not going to play 2 no matter what, so I'll take a Heron Blessed Geist here because it will be a fine 5 mana card if we go blue-white. Because we will have enchantments on the board thanks to every Disturb card in this set coming back as an enchantment, like Lantern's Lift and Gutter Skulker. So we'll have the enchantments that we need to exile this from the grave later and get the 1/1 Flyers. Now we can take a Steelclad Spirit. That's a nice late Syncopate. Definitely think this is a draft pod we are supposed to be in blue at the very least. Still not super committed to our second color, but that's a very late Heron of Hope. This card, similar to the Kindly Ancestor, just gives you a lot of life gain really quickly. So that's pretty good. Alright, pack 2, pick 1, what do we got here? We've got excellent black removal spells, but I don't think black was super open. The only good black card that we got was our rare, our pack 1, pick 1. We didn't really see anything else that was good in black, so if I take a Bleed Dry or Hero's Downfall, decently likely I don't end up with a ton of extra black cards. Now that could still be the direction to go if we think Falcon Wrath Forebear plus Hero's Downfall, or Forebear plus Bleed Dry is a strong enough reason to be in black, because blue's open enough that we could just play like 17 blue cards and just like 6 black cards by the end of this draft. I think I would rather just be in a more open color, though. I think I'm pretty happy to stay maybe blue-white here and scoop up a great blue draw spell. Thirst for Discovery, 3 mana to draw 3, then discard 2 cards or discard 1 basic land. Pretty good draw spell. I'll take the Thirst for Discovery here. Alright, pack 2, pick 2. We've got a Sigarda's Imprisonment out of white, which would be pretty nice. This would be our first removal spell if we do end up being a blue-white deck, which is pretty important to pick up. We only have 1 exploit card right now, so I don't think a second Biolume Egg looks incredible. Storm Chaser Drake is pretty good for blue-white or blue-red. In blue-white, we're going to put a bunch of auras on this with cards like our Disturb cards like Gutter Skulker and Lantern Bearer. We get to draw a card every time we do that. Is this good enough to take over Sigarda's Imprisonment? Honestly, it might be, because even if we don't put any auras onto it, a 2 mana 2/1 Flyer is a really efficient evasive threat. It's cheap, starts chipping away for 2 a turn real quick. I'm gonna take, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe blue's open enough to take Sigarda's Imprisonment here and potentially wheel that. I think blue is open enough that even if we don't wheel the Storm Chaser Drake, we'll at least wheel the Biolume Egg. Like, we should get one of the 2 powerful blue cards back. I don't think we'll wheel the white removal spell. And we need to have some removal in our deck. This is going to be a pretty easy Dorothy, Vengeful Victim. She hits the board, slaps our opponent for 4 damage immediately, and then puts this aura onto another one of our creatures that makes it so anytime that creature attacks, we get another 4/4 flyer hitting them for a turn, then sacrificing itself. So, if we can put this on an evasive threat, if we can, heaven forbid, put it on a Gutter Skulker or something. Wait, I guess it doesn't work with Gutter Skulker, because it's not a triggered ability, it's just a passive ability. Okay, well, if we put it on a Lantern Bearer or something in the sky and they don't have a flying blocker, then Dorothy's Retribution can end games super quickly. Very powerful card. So I'm pretty committed to blue-white now that we have a Dorothy, as well as Sigarda's Imprisonment and some stuff. So let's check out the mana curve here when we make this pick. I don't think I'm going to want another Gutter Skulker. I think I'll probably take my first Binding Geist over that. It's a fine dork. It dies and then turns into a pseudo removal spell, just whittling down a creature's power afterward. Alright, so this is our curve right now. Definitely want some more 2s and 3s, I think, so Binding Geist seems like a solid card to take on curve. Wretched Throng can be good if you can get a ton of copies of it. 3+ is where I like to be, that's where I'm pretty happy with the card. Pack 2, pick 5 might be a little late to get our first copy, but don't love Repository Scab. This is fine if you really like exploiting stuff, like if you have multiple Biolume Eggs and Lantern Bearers. We only have 1 of each right now. And Dreadlight Monstrosity is a pretty filler game ender. Can be strong though, I mean, you can give it unblockable relatively easily. Whenever a disturbed card dies, it'll go into exile. I think I'm going to go for the Throng here and hope for the best. Hope we can get a few more of those, but we'll see how it pans out for us. Adamant Will's a pretty good combat trick because it can also be used to counter removal spells as long as they don't exile. So Adamant Will would be a good pickup here, but Chill of the Grave is also just a very good tempo play, particularly good if you have a zombie on board, which isn't going to happen very often for our deck. But still, 3 mana to tap a creature, keep it stunned for a turn, and then draw a card. Still not bad. Chill of the Grave versus Adamant Will is a pretty close one. I'm going to go for the Chill of the Grave, though. Pack 2, pick 7. We've got the Dorky Griffrider Flyer, the Dorky Late Game Tapper, and the Dorky Early Game Vampire Slayer. All of these are on the lower end of filler. Cards that you would prefer to cut by the end of the draft. But they could all be our 22nd, 23rd playable if things go wrong. I'll just take another flyer here. Now we can take a Dreadlight Monstrosity as our curve topper if we don't find anything else. Don't really like Unholy Efficient. It's just a whole lot of mana to get that mana sink going. And not the best card until you do get that going. Now we can take an Adamant Will. We did get the Biolume Egg back. We did not get the Storm Chaser Drake. I think I will take a Biolume Egg and try to get enough exploit to get the double Biolume Egg looking pretty sweet here. Cradle of Safety is a strong card though. It's a combat trick and also a hexproof trick to counter removal spells. So that is a pretty good card. Speaking of pretty good cards, Geistlight Snare is a pretty great counterspell. It's basically just mana leak if you have a spirit or an enchantment on the board. 2 mana counterspell unless your opponent pays 3. Perfectly reasonable. Nice cheap counterspell for this archetype. Take a Selhoff Entomber here. It's a filler creature, but we need some more filler 2-drops. Especially if I don't get more Wretched Throngs, because then we only have 2. I'm not going to play a single copy of Wretched Throng. I will play Wretched Throng if I only have 2 of them, but I won't be very happy about it. Alright, pack 3. Pick 1. What do we got now? We've got a Winged Portent, which I have actually played before, but it's definitely not for this deck. You need to have a lot of flyers, or ways to produce a ton of flyers, or you need to be blue-green. Mischievous Catgeist would be pretty good, and it gives us another 2-drop. Nurturing Presence would also be pretty good, and it gives us another 2-drop. The problem with Nurturing Presence is you need to have a creature on board before you cast it. But it is pretty dang strong. I think I'll go for the Catgeist here, but again, pretty close between the Catgeist and the Nurturing Presence. Both are solid 2-drop cards. Got a Scattered Thoughts, which is a very good instant speed card draw spell. Looking at the top 4 cards of your library, putting 2 into your hand and the rest in grave. This card plays really well if we have a Geistlight Snare or a Syncopate in our hand. Just lets us hold up those counterspells a lot easier. We have a little bit to ramp into with the Foreboding Stature. This would not be bad here, but I think that Scattered Thoughts would just be very good here, so I should probably take that. I don't think it'll wheel. Pack 3, pick 3. There is a second Wretched Throng, but there's also a Syncopate, a Traveling Minister, and a Twinblade Geist, which are all incredible, that I think I would take any of these 3 over the Wretched Throng. So if Wretched Throng doesn't make the cut, we want more 1/2 drop creatures. So I think I'll give up on Syncopate here and choose between Traveling Minister and Twinblade Geist. Both very, very strong cards. I think I'm going to go for the Traveling Minister. Maybe I'm overvaluing this card, but I think this card is just so good. It played really well in our last deck as well. Just make sure that your smaller creatures can always keep getting into combat with things that are just a little bit larger than them. 2/2s attacking into 3/3s, because there'll be 3/2s when you have Traveling Minister on board. 3/3s attacking into 4/4s, so on and so forth. And if you're racing your opponent, this is draining them for life every turn. You're getting 1 more damage in and gaining 1 life. Take another removal spell here. We're pretty low on that. But the other thing that's really sweet about Traveling Minister is it often plays as getting more than 1 point of damage in every turn. Like, if you have a board state of 2 2/2s and a Traveling Minister, and your opponent has a 3/3 on board, now you can keep hitting them for 3 every turn. Whereas if you had that same board state, but without a Traveling Minister, if you just had 3 2/2s and they had a 3/3, you would be hitting them for 0 every turn because you would just lose a 2/2 on the attack. With Traveling Minister, boom, now you're going from hitting them for 0 every turn to hitting them for 3 every turn, so it's really hard to overstate how good Traveling Minister is. I'm going to take another Scattered Thoughts here. We could take Stitched Assistant for another exploit card, but I have a lot of 3s. And we could have taken another Mischievous Catgeist, but again, I'm not a huge fan of the Catgeist, so I find it relatively hard to connect and hit your opponent sometimes. I only have 3 humans in this deck, so this is not going to be a Resistance Squad deck, unfortunately. So we'll take another Heron of Hope here. Another 4-drop. Seems solid on the curve. I don't think these Biolume eggs are going to look particularly great, but I've got enough cards to cut them. I've got 29 cards at this point. Take another Binding Geist, or Wanderlight Spirit. Dorothy and Mischievous Catgeist both really want us to have a lot of evasive cards. Probably wheel a Wanderlight Spirit or 2, though. Oh, we do get a second Wretched Throng. Let's go. Sigarda Summons is pretty unplayable. We do have 1 Angelic Quartermaster to go with it, but that is just not going to be enough. Let's take another Wretched Throng, and now we've got 2 Wretched Throng, which is enough to play them. And as I said before, I'm pretty sure I saw some Wanderlight Spirits here, and I don't think anybody else is going to take them. And sure enough, there's a pick 9 Wanderlight Spirit. So we do get one of those. Could take a Piercing Light. Don't really like that removal spell, but it might make the cut here. No, we've got Double Imprisonment and 2 counterspells. It probably won't, but Wedding Invitation is just a 0% chance, and Supernatural Rescue also a 0% chance, so I guess I might as well. Ooh, we got the 3rd Wretched Throng. Okay, there we go. Triple Wretched Throng, value. Let's go. And we got the Nurturing Presence back. Alright, well, our deck did just improve pretty significantly. The Biolume Egg game plan did not work out, but we got some other stuff going on that's pretty strong, which is nice. And we'll still have expendable creatures for our Diver Scab. Because we're going to have 3 Wretched Throngs now, which are still perfectly exploitable. But they don't need to be exploited to be good like the Biolume eggs do. So I am loving how this looks. To cut 12 more cards after we drop the Biolume eggs. That is a lot. Probably don't have room for the Lantern of the Lost. That's just very filler if we are too low on cards to make a whole deck, and we are too high on cards right now. We've got too many of them. Allenbach Escort doesn't do anything in this deck, so we'll cut that. Need to cut a lot of cards out of here still. 10 more to go. We probably have enough evasive threats. We've got a lot of flyers in here. Did we just chip in with a bunch of those over time rather than having like one big endgame card like a Dreadlight Monstrosity? So we could lower the curve quite a bit, dropping down like a 6 and a couple 5 drops here. Oh, we're not going to be super good at training up this Griff Rider either. 1 toughness is pretty bad. A Steel-clad Spirit Selhoffen Tumor is the weakest 2 drops. Brings us to 44 cards, 15 creatures, so I don't want to cut any more creatures. Could drop Adamant Will, Piercing Light. Focus up on just counter spells and removal spells mostly over here. So 3 instant speed draw spells, 2 counter spells, 2 removal spells. And then we have Nurturing Presence, which is basically our 16th creature at 2 mana. And Chill of the Grave. Yeah, I guess I'll just drop the Chill of the Grave. And I have 4 zombies, so it'll be 2 mana sometimes, but I think I'm just going to go for hard removal and counter spells for the non-creature stuff. And I think we will call it a deck there. Alright, here's a look at our completed deck list for today. This is going to be a blue-white Flyers deck, a blue-white Disturb deck in general. We've got a lot of creatures that will die and then come back as auras for 2-for-1 value. Cards like a Lantern Bearer hit the board early, get a bunch of evasive damage in, and once they die, later on we can slap them onto another one of our creatures to give that flying and get in for extra damage. Mischievous Catgeist can potentially draw some cards if it deals combat damage to our opponent, and then can slap the same ability onto another creature later. Double Binding Geist can be used as somewhat of removal spells later on, after they have died, and Gutter Skulker can make one of our creatures basically unblockable later on after it dies. Dorothy, Vengeful Victim, is the biggest bomb in the deck, the strongest card in the deck. She's going to attack her opponent for 4 and then sacrifice herself, letting us recast the aura that spits out a 4/4 flyer every time the enchanted creature attacks. So ideally we'll be slapping this onto some kind of flyer like a Lantern Bearer, a Wanderlight Spirit, or a Heron of Hope. That way we can keep getting that trigger going instead of slapping this onto something on the ground that just dies the second it attacks, because ideally we're trying to hit our opponent with this Retribution for multiple turns. So that is the general course of the game with our creatures, bunch of strong stuff across the curve there. For our interaction, we have a couple counterspells, Geistlight Snare and Syncopate, as well as some instant speed card draw to make it easier to hold up those counterspells. That way, if our opponent doesn't end up casting anything good, we'll still have something to do with our mana, spending it to draw some cards, get ahead in card advantage. And then we also have a couple removal spells, 2 Sigarda's Imprisonment. So that is the deck for today. Pretty excited about this one. Hopefully it does pretty well, but I guess we'll find out now as we head into the gameplay. Here we are now on the play for game 1 with the perfectly keepable hand. We get to curve out pretty well with Wretched Throng into Wanderlight Spirit. Then we hold up the ability to syncopate something or cast a Scattered Thoughts, depending on what happens. Our opponent's going to start off with a turn 1 Lantern Bearer, which is a great card. We are running one of those ourselves, and they are going to be blue-black, which is kind of the exploit color pair. Bunch of ways to sacrifice these Disturb cards for value. So they started Lantern Bearer into Mischievous Catgeist. I kind of like the idea of Binding Geist right now over the Wanderlight Spirit, because if that dies, being able to attach one of their creatures with a -2/-0 aura is going to play pretty well against the Mischievous Catgeist's ability. Because we can make the Catgeist have 0 power so that it can't draw them any cards, or we can make whatever they put the Catgeist thing onto 0 power. So I'm going to take 2 damage in the sky here by choosing not to attack, but I think that's fine. Or by choosing not to cast Wanderlight Spirit. But I think it's worth it to hold up Syncopate in case of anything bad. And if they don't do anything, we'll Scattered Thoughts. We'll grab... I think... might go Wanderlight Spirit, hold up Geistlight Snare, and Syncopate. So let's pick up the Geistlight Snare. And I guess I could take the Heron of Hope for later, gain a bunch of life, get back into the game over the Nurturing Presence. I think that's fine. Yeah, Geistlight Snare is going to give me the ability to cast this Wanderlight Spirit and still be able to counter probably anything they want to do. Whereas if I just hold up Syncopate, they could cast a 4-mana spell and I couldn't counter it here. This is not the best deal ever. 5-mana spell. This might be wrong, but I'm going to Syncopate for 1. So I can cast Heron of Hope and hold up Geistlight Snare next turn. This could play badly if they don't cast a good spell until they have more than 3 extra mana for it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I assume they'll be casting something that they don't have 3 extra mana for at some point. Ooh, Red Source. Well, they don't have 3 extra mana for that, and that is just straight up draw 3. Yeah, let's counter that. Get rid of their 3-for-1 card advantage spell. And do it while they still don't have enough mana to get any extra value. No, we top decked a Wretched Throng without the first one dying. So, I mean, I could just attack with both flyers and I'll outrace them quite a bit. So let's just start doing that, I think. Alright, we like the board state. It's all going to depend on if our opponent can draw out of this position, though. Currently, we are pretty far in the lead, but we'll have to see what each player draws, and everything that they've cast for now is perfectly fine. Alright, drawing all 3 of our Wretched Throngs is egregiously bad, but that's okay. Because it doesn't look like anything's going to be dying right now. Anyway. Alright, they're down to 9. They gotta draw some outs pretty quickly here. They drew into a Doomed Dissenter. They get to use their Entomber to discard that and draw another card. And they're just gonna scoop them up. They are over it, and we're gonna start things off 1-0. With just some solid work done by our commons and uncommons, just some dorky flyers getting in there. That game was mainly just some great work done by our counter spells alongside our instant speed card draw. That all played very well. Alright, here we are on the play for game 2 with no blue sources in the hand of all blue cards. We're going to take a mulligan here. This is pretty keepable. I think I'm going to... it might be a little greedy. This isn't like super keepable. But I don't think it's a mulligan to 5 here. I kind of want to get rid of a Binding Geist, so I still have a Quartermaster for the top end, but that might be a bit greedy. I need to draw 3 more lands to get there. Yeah, I'll just get rid of the most expensive card. Alright, Persistent Specimen, turn 1. Okay, we did hit a land, so we can Binding Geist at least. Take 1 from the Specimen. Opponent plays nothing. We have hit another land. I'll drop a Binding Geist. We'll let them resolve their 3-drop. I don't have any other stuff I can do at instant speed, so if I hold up a Syncopate and then they just don't play anything good, it's going to play pretty bad, and I don't think I would want to counter a Gluttonous Guest. The card is pretty good, but I don't think it's like a must-be-countered thing. Okay, let's just slam everybody down. Have Syncopate be the last thing we do. when we've got nothing else to do anyway. Our deck's pretty weak against Persistent Specimen in particular, because all our stuff is like 1 toughness, so we just don't want to trade into specimens, and Doom Dissenters either. Alright, our opponent uses their blood token to discard a Binding Geist and draw a card, so they've got access to a Spectral Binding in their graveyard. Alright, I can Wretched Throng and still have Syncopate for 1 here, which is fine. And Wretched Throng, I'll trade that off into 1/1s all day at this point. An Undead Butler with a Toxrill the Corrosive in their graveyard. One of the strongest bomb rares in the format. That card is insane. We need to make sure we keep Syncopate for that, because even if I imprison it, it's going to put a slime counter on all my stuff and kill all of my 1 toughness cards before I can use Imprisonment to exile it fully. So we just need Syncopate up for whenever they bring it back with Undead Butler. I think I'm just chilling, poking for 1 damage a turn until they Spectral Binding my Lantern Bearer, but it looks like they're still... Oh. Well, shoot. They've missed several land drops, so they still need to draw 2 more lands and return Toxrill from their grave to their hand. And if I don't counter Welcoming Vampire, I have to imprisonment it, in which case next turn they probably play a creature that draws them another card. I do not like having to use Syncopate here, but I'm pretty sure I have to use Syncopate here. Because it's going to take them at minimum, like if they're very lucky, it's going to take them 3 turns. To recast Toxrill. And it's probably going to take them quite a bit longer, because that's if they draw land every single turn, and they find a way to guarantee to exploit the Undead Butler, because I'm just not going to block it if they chump attack with it. So we have time to try to find a Geistlight Snare, or try to find more flyers and try to kill them before they can get Toxrill back. Anything like that. And again, we have the removal spell for Toxrill, it's just that we're going to lose our whole board if we do that. And they're going to get a million slugs, because all of our creatures will die. Yeah, if Toxrill resolves, we're going to lose. But I think Welcoming Vampire being resolved on board would also be a pretty big issue. Even if we could imprison then exile, we'd be getting some pretty great value from it for a turn or 2. Okay, Courier Bat, no life gain this turn, so they don't pick up the Toxrill. But they do have a flyer against our Lantern Bearer now. Let's drop a Heron of Hope. If they don't draw into a blue source, then they still don't have any Spectral Bindings. So the Heron of Hope will be the best attacker on the board. We can break through that Courier Bat. And Heron of Hope will not die to a Toxrill. So if I don't, like, immediately die to... slug tokens from Toxrill, I could still chip at them with the Heron of Hope after I imprison exile it. Ooh. That is so good if they don't have removal here. Fingers crossed. They've got something instant speed, which means probably a way to kill the Heron of Hope. But let's see. Block with Courier Bat, so Adamant Will or something. Undying Malice. Okay, so they're going to bring that back as a 3/3. Then they'll have a 3/3 flyer against our 2/3 flyers. I see. Alright. I'll get my life gain, I guess. Okay, they're still on 5 mana. The only way that we know that they have to bring Toxtrol back is this Undead Butler, which they need to exploit it, because I'm never going to kill it. I gain way more than 1 every turn. I can imprison the flyer if I want to go all in here and just try to outrace them. 5 damage a turn kills them in 4 turns. It probably takes them more than 4 turns to get Toxtrol on board. Actually kill them in 3 attacks because Traveling Minister. Let's go for it. I guess I don't kill them in 3 attacks. I hit for 6 and 6. I put them to 1 life in 2 more attacks. There's no way they outrace me though. Double Heron of Hope is just absurd. They just 100% have to hit Toxtrol. Alright, they're at 7 life. 2 more flying swings can kill them. They do hit land number 7, but they don't have Toxtrol in hand right now. They need to sack this Undead Butler somehow. I think I miscounted the lands earlier. Or I missed one of their land drops. I wasn't paying attention to the 5th swamp. Ooh, this is a blue source for the Spectral Bindings, which puts a little bit of a wrench in our attempted attacks for lethal. We hit for 4 this turn, and then 2 next turn. That's going to be a problem. Okay, I'm at 29 life. I don't need to gain more life. Let's get a blood token right now. Try to draw into something instead. Okay, well, that is nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4 blockers on the ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attackers on the ground. So I just go for the 4 damage in the sky, and then next turn I attack with everybody on the ground. The problem with that is if I don't immediately kill them, then they can make sure the Undead Butler dies on the block. So I definitely don't attack on the ground this turn, because we really need that Undead Butler to not die here. Yeah, whenever I attack, it has just got to be the lethal attack if I'm attacking on the ground. So, Spectral Binding number 2 on that Heron of Hope. I can hit them for 2 in the sky. There's a Gutter Skulker, so I can hit if I Traveling Minister, I hit them for 2 in the sky. They have 4 blockers on the ground. Tapped Traveling Minister means 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers on ground against 4 blockers, so we just hit them for 2 in the sky, and now they have to find a way to deal with Gutter Skulker. Gutter Skulker was a super live draw. I guess I could have... I had the extra mana up. I could have Traveling Ministered one of the Heron of Hopes and then also given that lifelink and gained like 2, 3 extra life here. Going wide, hitting them for 2 instead. But I think we're good. They have to kill Lantern Bearer and Gutter Skulker now. So they're going to Fear of Death the Gutter Skulker, which effectively kills it. That is not going to kill them anymore. What about the Lantern Bearer? There's the Storm Chaser Drake to block the Lantern Bearer. However, I can just Traveling Minister one of the Heron of Hopes and attack with both. Alright, that is going to be game. Our opponent just did not find any exploit for the Undead Butler. If they hit any exploit card throughout that game, I think we probably would have been pretty dead because we did not draw into our second counterspell for the Toxrill. So if they had a way to sacrifice that Undead Butler, they did make it to 7 mana for a few turns before we killed them. So again, if they had anything to sack the Undead Butler earlier, they would have had a Toxrill in their hand and just slam that on the board, get a million slugs, wipe out my board state. Could have been super bad for me, but we got pretty lucky there, and our early line of just trying to keep the path clear and outrace the Toxrill did work out for us, because they could not get that Undead Butler engraved, so really good work from Double Heron of Hope there. That was just a million life, but also excellent work from Lantern Bearer and Traveling Minister. That was another one of those instances that you don't really think of too much with the Traveling Minister. That played out incredibly well for us with how flexible this card is, how good it is at letting you attack in different board positions. It's not just making my Lantern Bearer hit them for 2 every turn, it's also that flexibility of once they do play a flying blocker, letting me make one of my 0 power flyers 1 power flyers that I'm attacking with 2 1 power flyers against the 1 power opponent. So really sweet stuff from Traveling Minister, the Heron of Hopes, the Lantern Bearer, all the flying and unblockable nonsense playing super well for us there. We are now 2-0 heading into Game 3. Alright, here we are on the play for Game 3. I am loving this hand. Lantern Mister. Alright, Traveling Minister is a heck of a card, but so is Lantern Bearer. That is probably where I got the 2 names all mixed together. I'm gonna go for Lantern Bearer. Turn 1, so if they play any blockers, I can still be chipping in for damage. And we'll save that Traveling Minister for turn 3. Curve out with the Wretched Throng. There's a Kessig Flame Breather, and here is another position where Traveling Minister is going to help us out quite a bit, making this Wretched Throng a 3-power attacker into the Flame Breather. But we've also got our sweet rare to try out. This will be our first time playing around with Dorothy. But she seems like a phenomenally powerful card, getting a ton of extra damage in here. So our opponent is reading through Dorothy, making sure they know all the intricacies there. They're going to go for Reckless Impulse. They hit Mountains. They do draw 2 cards off of it guaranteed. They'll be able to play both those mountains quite easily. I definitely don't need to imprison the Flame Breather, so I'm going to probably spend my mana on recasting Dorothy. I will kind of sort of get 2 for 1 though if they have a removal spell. If I cast this Dorothy on a Lantern Bearer and then they just have the 1 mana, 2 damage to a card and exile it spell, that'll be pretty bad for me. I'm actually going to go Wretched Throng. We're going to go the Coward's route here and just play another creature rather than stacking the Aura onto something immediately. If they tap out, I'm slamming this Aura down. But if they have a bunch of mana up, then I will not. Okay. I am fairly certain they are holding up the 1 red mana 2 damage spell, because they played the combatants and still had to pass through multiple steps, I think. So I think they're thinking on a spell here. Plus, hitting the land was so good for us, because if I didn't hit the land here and my choices were Imprisonment or Dorothy, I think I would go for Dorothy's Retribution, but since I hit the land and I can just Gutter Skulker here, I think I will just Gutter Skulker here. Alright, well, it looks like they probably don't have something, because now it's just not stopping them for them at all. They must have a 1 mana sorcery speed card is what's going on. I mean, the nice thing here is that we really don't need to play Dorothy's Retribution to have a very winning board state. Now they have 3 mana up for something. I've only got 4 mana, so I could play Wretched Throng and a Catgeist. Something like that. I could not play Dorothy in another spell. think I'll go for the double spell here rather than Dorothy. They're down to 7. Our board state is super wide. Another Reckless Impulse for them gets them another Voltaic Visionary and another Reckless Impulse. But seems like they probably don't have any removal. They would have used it by now. They are blue-red and they never hit the blue source. Now they have an Alchemist's Retrieval to cast though. 2 mana, bounce one of our cards. But they're just going to tap out for that Voltaic Visionary and scoop it up. They just did not hit enough cheap interaction. And we had an aggressive enough hand and an aggressive enough board state that I was able to play it really safe there anyway. But we could have ended that game even quicker if we threw Retribution onto something. Either way though, really, really nice stuff from the deck, just pressuring our opponent. Quite a lot there. We're going to be 3-0 now heading into game number 4. Here we are for game 4. I'm a decent fan of this hand. A little high on mana, but other than that, it's looking pretty good. I like the Lantern Bearer to start things off. We've got the instant speed card draw or the Heron of Hope for turn 4. Both of those have played quite well in previous games. Ooh, and we've got an Angelic Quartermaster to top off the curve. Another flyer that buffs up the board state as well. Should be pretty sweet. We draw into a Wretched Throng because we never didn't have it. Just drawing perfectly here to curve out turn 1 into turn 2 at least. Our opponent's on mono white so far. We didn't hit a 3-drop, so not the perfect curve, but we're certainly having a better time early game than our opponent, who has cast nothing until turn 4. They must have kept one of those hands with a bunch of very powerful off-color cards. That is likely what's going on here. They have a bunch of super strong green or black or blue or red cards in their hand, and they really hoped to draw their second color. Which is unfortunate, because we didn't curve out completely perfectly, but we did curve out everything except the turn 3 play, which is still more than aggressive enough to probably kill them here. Oh, by invitation only. That is the game plan. Well, that is not wonderful for me, I'll say that much. But I can play 2 Wretched Throngs and then imprison a blocker and Lantern Bearer one of these Throngs next turn. Maybe they do have a bunch of spells, they just didn't want to play anything until they're by invitation only. Okay, they do have a Diagraph Scavenger for the Lantern Bearer too? Good god, that is perfect. The perfectly timed swamp for that. Still kill them in 2 attacks here, so I'm going to go for it, holding up a Geistlight Snare, hopefully counter whatever they try to play this turn. Hopefully it's just going to be one big spell, cast another copy of By Invitation Only or something. If they play multiple blockers here, that won't work. Alright, so they were stuck on mana and had a board wipe. Probably all black spells. Desperate Farmer I can't counter. It's a lifelinker too, which is such a bummer. I will counter the Scavenger. Find any way to get through this Desperate Farmer, and we will win on the spots. If I can hit land and imprisonment, something like that. Come on, Scattered Thoughts. Dang, yeah, if they didn't have a Scavenger, I'd hit him for 3 in the sky. That would be so good. You can still just attack in with both of these and trade one in. Just play a Nurturing Presence this turn. Then they trade into whatever I put the presence on. I could... Oh wait, no, I could Binding Geist. Let this go into the grave. Actually seems kind of legit. Make sure they gain 0 here and I lose no creatures. They still have to chump block. Yeah, now they have to chump block, and I get to keep both my creatures and still put them to 2. That feels really good. And we don't take the land if we do that, because we're not going to be doing anything with the 7th mana. Markov Purifier, another lifelinker. And a Ragged Recluse for another blocker. Play a flyer here, a Heron of Hope. play a Heron of Hope and hold a Nurturing Presence for the future. Also Scattered Thoughts. And go like land Binding Geist or something. I could also Heron of Hope and Nurturing Presence the Heron of Hope right now. So that I have 2 flyers on the board. And if I play a creature next turn, I hit for 4 in this guy, which kills them through Markov Purifier's life gain. I'm gonna go for it. Another land for our opponent. They do have a removal spell and it gains them 3 life. Which means they draw a card off Markov Purifier. God dang it. The hard stabilization is coming in here. It's coming in hot. Alright, Scattered Thoughts, we gotta find some good stuff. This is not that great. Might be on land, Thirst for Discovery, and then cast Binding Geist so they can't attack in with Purifier. Because if they attack with Purifier, I have to double block with 2 Throngs right now. Being able to block with 1 Geist feels good. I could also take Traveling Minister to up my flying power, but hopefully Thirst for Discovery can find me more flyers next turn. I guess I could Thirst for Discovery discarding Catgeist and Binding Geist next turn, but I think I'd rather play Binding Geist now. On blocks against Purifier. This is a complex game of Magic. There's been a lot of options with all this card draw going on. Alright, bleed dry the Binding Geist, kill it and completely exile it from our grave. If they attack with Markov Purifier now, I think I need to double block that thing. So I need to stop them from drawing an extra card every turn, potentially. Gotta hope no combat trick here. No combat trick, we kill the Purifier. I don't think I have any Wretched Throngs left. I do not. I do get to shuffle my library twice. Pointed Discussion, draw 2 and lose 2 life. They're back down to 4. But that's a lot of card draw. Blood Token as well to discard a land. And they are going to do that. Discard a land, draw a card. Which flips into the Odious Witch. Forgot about that. That's an issue, because that gains them a life every turn. The damage it deals isn't that bad, but it's going to gain them a life every turn. I guess every time they attack with that, that's 1 less blocker they have up, though. Alright, Thirst for Discovery, what do we hit? Diver's Scab. Diver's Scab is pretty legit. I'm gonna have to hardcast Catgeist then. So I have something to exploit. Unless I just play a land and play a Diver's Scab sacking my 1/1 flyer, they'll be at 3 life facing a 3 power Diver's Scab, but I think I keep the flyer. I guess the flyer doesn't outrace an Odious Witch. I don't know, this is a difficult decision. I definitely don't play the Diver's Scab sacking itself. I don't think I'm going to be discarding the Catgeist at this point. Yeah, I'll try that. I'm going to play the Catgeist this turn, play the Scab next turn. Next turn I have the 8 mana to sack the Catgeist and then put the Curiosity onto my flyer. And also deal with one of their creatures with Diver's Scab's exploitability. Probably the best line, best option here. Odia Switch comes on in. They go for a Courier Bat with the life gain trigger. Return any creature from their grave to their hand, which includes some very good stuff like Diregraph Scavenger, Markov Purifier for that card draw. Good God, is that bad. Markov Purifier it is, and they do have the mana to play it and draw the card off of it. Still have 2 mana up afterward. Good grief. Oh, hey, Dorothy. That is a huge win con here. So, 8 mana. I have 5 mana to get a blood token, 1 mana to sack it, and then 3 mana to put a Dorothy on board. Forces them to chump with the Courier Bat. 7, 8. Is that the play? Force them to chump with Courier Bat here and have a Dorothy on this? Or do we play the Diver Scab? If I play Diver Scab, what am I getting rid of here? I play Diver Scab, sack Catgeist, bounce the Courier Bat, but then they reanimate something next turn. Bounce the Markov Purifier, but then I don't attack this turn. I think I'm going to go for the Dorothy line. They need an out to this spirit token now, or it's going to attack for 5 in the sky, thanks to the angel. There's a gluttonous guest for even more life gain for our opponent. I'm going to gain a lot here. Deal 5 to me, which is a lot. They're up to 6, 7 off the blood token. Can hit for 5 off of the spirit. Oh my god, and they drew into their removal for the spirit too. This is one of the biggest recoveries I've had my opponent have here. Well, I think we're just dead now. Just found insane card draw engines after their 4 or 5 for 1 board wipe early. We've cast a lot of card draw ourselves, so we've actually made it even farther through our deck than they have by a lot. We have 7 cards left, but that's because all the like dig 4, mill 2 of them kind of card draw. But yeah, I mean, well done from our opponent. I think that's just game. Maybe it's Skulker, then Scab, sack the Skulker. I don't know. I'm just gonna poke the guest and draw 1 card. This game is basically over. I don't think we have any outs left in our deck. It's probably Skulker and then sack the Skulker to the Scab. Alright, gain their 1 life. With the blood token. It's just a land anyway. Alright, we were out of here. What a bummer. Incredibly powerful deck from our opponent, but they also just hit all the right stuff really efficiently. We drew pretty well as well, so the fact that we couldn't keep up is insane. Incredible stuff from our opponent here. Alright, I'm just going to scoop out now. Our 6 cards left are not cards they're going to break through, especially now that they have a flying lifelinker. They'll be at 8 life after this attack. I attack with a Gutter Skulker. I don't have any interaction left in this deck. I guess I have 1 more imprisonment, but if I draw that imprisonment, it doesn't even matter what I shut off out of these 3. Shut off a Heron of Hope to make sure their life gain isn't as big anymore, but if I attack with Gutter Skulker, then I die on the crackback to these 2. Without a creature big enough to block Purifier, well... yeah, no. Game's super over. 3-1, heading into round 5. Alright, here we are on the play for game number 5 with a really slow hand. We are on the play, so I can just hold up a Syncopate as our turn 2 play, so I guess I'll keep it for that, but I could see a solid argument for mulliganing this with no creatures to play early here. We are playing against a green-white. I'm going to start with a turn 2 Dawnheart Disciple. I'm just going to play Syncopate to curve out here. Syncopate into Wanderlight Spirit, into Scattered Thoughts, go from there. If I hit the 4th land naturally, I'll probably Heron of Hope over Scattered Thoughts now. Playing against Bance, green, white, and blue. And we did not hit the next land, so we poke for 2. 2 imprisonment in hand here. If I imprison a Spore Crawler, that just gives them an incredible exploit target if they have exploit stuff out of their blue. What? Oh, Magic Arena, never change. Our opponent with natural Forest, Plains, Island, Swamp on curve. Alright, we found our 4th land. Old Rutstein's going to be an issue. I could put an imprisonment on Rutstein, but it'll take another turn to exile Rutstein, and that's even if I hit the next land. So I think I just let Rutstein go for now and get some value. I think I do play the Heron of Hope, because if I Scattered Thoughts here, part of what I'm looking for is the 5th land for Quartermaster. And if I get the 5th land for Quartermaster, I'm not even going to want to play it until I have 2 other creatures on the board to get the maximum value from its +1/+1 counters. Infestation Expert, that is a very strong card. 5 mana for a 3/4 and a 1/1. Every time it attacks, they get another 1/1, and if it's nighttime, every time it attacks, they get 2 1/1s. Alright, here's Angelic Quartermaster. I guess we're desperately trying to outrace them in the sky. It's not looking like it's going to work out super well. If I hit every single land on curve, we probably would win this race. But missing our 4th land drop for a turn, I think makes them outpace us here. Right, I hit them for 9 in the sky, so it's going to take 2 more attacks to kill them. I feel like I probably die quicker than that, especially if they have a removal spell here. For the Heron of Hope, where I don't gain any life. Savior of Allenbach, I do not know what this does. Whenever it trains, exile another creature from the battlefield or a creature from a graveyard. When it leaves the battlefield, put the exile. So it's going to train up to being a 2/2, which isn't going to exile any of my cards. So I'm not actually worried about that. I'm going to kill them in 2 attacks. But I need to not take 8 damage on the crackback. Do I just play a Dorothy and an Imprisonment then? Does that gain more life than giving Heron of Hope lifelink? Dorothy and giving Heron of Hope lifelink would cost the same amount of mana. Heron of Hope lifelink would gain 4. Dorothy as a blocker gains 3? I guess I gain 4 off Heron of Hope here and just play 1 Imprisonment. But then 1 Imprisonment, I imprison the Hookhand Mariner. Take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I die. Do I die on the crackback if I attack with one creature? If I attack with just the Wanderlight Spirit, since that can't block anyway, I block two things. Block there, block there. Oh wait, no, I meant... Oh my god. I'll be at 11 with the Heron of Hope life gain, taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, I exactly die. And I also exactly die if I play Dorothy as a blocker. So I need Heron of Hope as a blocker. Then... And Imprisonment. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's not counting Mariner. I guess it's safer to play around sorcery speed removal by playing Dorothy, but if I cast Dorothy and they have sorcery speed removal, I think I still die. So let's imagine I have two blockers and I don't get any life on blocks. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, but I stop 3 and 3. I take 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I definitely survive. Whereas against sorcery speed removal against Heron of Hope, I block with only Quartermaster at 8 life. Block there, take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's still not dead. I'm gonna go for Dorothy though. Dorothy's like a really good blocker here because then any creature that's left behind just turns into lethal. Any 3-power flyer that's attacking also with a 4/4 angel is gonna kill them. So Dorothy is just the snap block immediately. Oh, this exiles any creature on the board? I thought it was only stuff that's, I thought it was only stuff that's less power. Alright, I guess I die to a combat trick. No, let's actually not die to a combat trick. Well, I don't think I can not die to a combat. I'm stopping one less point of damage by blocking the Savior. So yeah, block the Savior. No combat trick. Get the Heron back. They're super dead on board right now, but they might have instant speed removal. They do not. They are going to scoop them up. Shaking in my boots there. That was a really close one. I thought we might die there with our kind of slower curve out. So I guess our opponent was just splashing a little bit of blue and a little bit of black, and they just drew their one island, one swamp immediately for the old Rutstein splash. That's kind of wild. I guess there's a Witness the Future splash going on here. There might even be a red source for Lantern Flare. It's a splashy deck. Yeah, I guess old Rutstein also mana fixes with those treasure tokens. That was pretty interesting mana there. But it seems like they were pretty much casting all green and white spells, so basically a green-white deck with a Rutstein splash there. The double white for the Savior. Yeah, green and white have to be their core colors. That's what was going on there. Alright. 4-1, we are now guaranteed to break even at worst with 1,400 gems and 3 packs as the prizes from the 1,500 gem event. Great place to be, but we'll see if we can't get a few more wins in here and get just far into the money. Alright, here we are for game 6. We're on a mono blue hand, but I do like Diver Scab with Throng and Catgeist, so I think I'm still going to keep it here. We are on the draw. So we've got one extra draw step here to try to find a white source. I'm going to get a bit greedy here and see if they just play no creatures turn 3 and we get to draw a card for free. That would be awesome. Alright. Our greed was not rewarded. Wretched Throng would have hit them for 2 and Catgeist does nothing. That's okay. I think I have to Thirst for Discovery rather than Wretched Throng here because we're digging for that white source. So probably draw 3, discard this island looking for plains. Oh, there's a Thirst for Discovery of their own. The nice thing here is if they tap out for that right now, if they want to use the Foreboding Statue mana, then they don't have a blocker up for Catgeist, if they wanted to use that for another non-creature spell. At sorcery speed. We do find the plains, which is very good considering I just drew a double white card. We are going to need that pretty badly. Okay, drew into another 4 mana play as well. I could play Throng plus Presence here, which gets a Catgeist attack in, which is pretty nice. I guess that's better than playing Heron of Hope here. Draw some cards, dig for these second planes. Uh-oh. This 2-mana removal spell at instant speed? Could be in any color, so they definitely could have one. They could have an Abrade or something. Out of red. They could have the Alchemist's Greeting for 1 and a blue, put the Catgeist back into my hand. That wouldn't be fun. Alright, no removal spell. Happy to see it. We get a piece of card draw off the Catgeist, and if I can play enough creatures, I can keep damaging them with the Catgeist. Infestation Expert, large blocker, has arrived. Says hello. So I've got the 5th mana to play an Angelic Quartermaster. That would make the Catgeist a 3/3 this turn, so that's not going to get in anymore. But I could play the Quartermaster, put a counter on the 1/1 Flyer. The 1/1 Flyer gets in. If I played Diver Scab, sacrificing a Wretched Throng to bounce the Infestation Expert, Catgeist is a 2/2, attacks in, trades into Foreboding Statue. That is not bad. However, they would get to replay the Infestation Expert, which would mean they get another 1/1 from the Enter the Battlefield trigger. I could go Sigarda's Imprisonment and Lantern Bearer, so they can't block or attack with Infestation Expert for the rest of the game. And Catgeist attacks as a 2/2, which means it trades into Foreboding Statue at worst. That actually seems like probably the best line. And then I could attack with everybody, because if they want to kill Catgeist, then the Wretched Throng gets in, and it's not the end of the world if the 1/1 Insect trades into Wretched Throng, since we do get another copy out of the deck. Alright, so we get to search our library for Wretched Throng and draw a card off Mysterious Catgeist, or Mischievous Catgeist. So we'll have the Throng resolve first, so we're less likely to draw into another Throng here. Alright, Screeching Swarm, 4/4 Flyer. That looks like a Diver Scab target to me. Make them replay it again next turn. I could, I guess, bounce the Forsaken Thresher, because it's going to take them a lot longer to make that matter, to make that a 5/5. But I want to chip in for some attacks here, I think. And then we get to play Quartermaster on these. Yeah, let's do it. Sack the Catgeist here. Alright, so they're just going to replay that next turn, so this gives us a little bit of time to look for another Sigarda's Imprisonment. Screeching Swarm is back. Okay, we find land 7. Could play Quartermaster plus Throng, or Heron of Hope and Binding Geist, or Heron of Hope and Mischievous Catgeist. The Curiosity spell. Let's just go Quartermaster Throng, I think. get a position here where they can't afford to attack with the Screaming Swarm. Its mill ability will trigger even if they don't attack with it, though. They can mill us with other cards. Okay, there's a mulch. Pick up a land, mill a bunch of cards. We've got 7 mana, so I could spend 5 on Imprisonment, 1 mana to discard a card, draw a card, discarding Binding Geist. I would need 1 more mana to have the mana to discard this Binding Geist and then recast it on something here. Ooh, Sky Warp Scab, now they have a 2/5 flying blocker too. Geist Light Snare, you would have been awesome earlier. Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna want to try to Spectral Binding something with this Binding Geist. So I keep it in hand. Just play a Heron of Hope for now and hold up Geist Light Snare. Just keep playing Flyers until I have enough to go wide. I guess I could just keep playing creatures, period. Until I have enough to hit them for 12 by attacking with everybody. They've got a lot of cards in hand, though, so I imagine they stabilize pretty well. But we have a ton of Flyers, so we can probably find enough Flyers eventually to try to get around their Flyers. Not super certain about creatures on the ground. They'll probably have plenty of those out of green. Whoa. Yeah, go for it. Oh, they milled my Imprisonment, but they also milled a Spectral Binding. No blocks. I will happily crack back for a ton of damage here. Go to 14. Another Skywarp Scab, and this is where that Geist Light Snare comes in so handy. Because now they just have no blockers. I've got nothing else I can do at instant speed, so I can hit for 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage this turn. So they're basically dead in 2 swings, pretty much guaranteed. You know, it's probably better to just play more creatures instead of draw cards. They have 2 blockers on the ground. I have 2 attackers on the ground, so there's no point in that. They would just trade. They would just kill Scab and trade with Throng. So we attack with only the Flyers, and then I spend all 8 of my mana playing more creatures. Just play Heron and Geist to make it pretty much impossible that they have enough blockers next turn, and they're going to scoop them up because I'm thinking a little too hard about it. And they are over it. They're like, I do not have any outs here. I don't need my opponent to think tank right now. I'm just trying to make sure we dot our I's, cross all our T's here. Make the best play to guarantee lethal in 2 attacks. And yeah, I think it is. Attack with the Flyers, slam down Heron of Hope, Binding Geist. That puts them to 3 and then leaves us with 8 creatures on the board for the next attack. So yeah, instinctually I wanted to just Catgeist and get more card advantage out there, but I think against green-blue they're not going to have any board wipes, so we just make the board super wide so no matter what happens they won't have enough blockers next turn. That is going to be 5-1 now in the money out of this Premier Draft of Crimson Vow. Here we are for Game 6. We are 5-1 right now. No white source is a bit of a bummer, but we have 3 castable spells. 2 of them are Wretched Throngs, though, which is awkward. Moderately tempted to mulligan this. I don't think double Wretched Throng into Geist is that strong, but if we get the Dorothy down, that's going to be a pretty big deal. I guess there's no Flyers to put Dorothy on either. I suppose I could mulligan this. This would be a little bit of a greedy mulligan, though, because the hand's, like, perfectly playable. It's just not great. I'll do it anyway, though. Take that mulligan, and I do like this hand better. I do enjoy this hand quite a bit. Get rid of the Gutter Skulker. Alright, our opponent is on red with a turn 1 Voldaren Epicure. Well, no way Catgeist is going to get in then. If we can discard it and slap it onto a Lantern Bearer, that would be pretty sweet. Or just chump block with it, that would be fine to trade it into the Epicure. That would be a faster way to do it than trying to wait till I have a blood token. Wedding Invitation turn 2. They're going to draw a card. They can also give any creature unblockable, and if it's a vampire, it's unblockable lifelink, which is pretty massive. Right, there's no way they attack with Epicure again next turn if I play Catgeist, unless they're going to play another creature on blocks. But that would be good for me, because then I could just imprison whatever they play and draw a card off Catgeist, which would probably be worth it. So red-black, they are going to do it, alright. Attack for 1, play a decent creature here and I imprison it. Belligerent Guest, good enough for me. If I get a free card draw off of playing the imprisonment, I'm going to do it. Turn it into a 2 for 1, even if it means I have less removal at the ready for better threats later. They are playing black, so if they have Exploit, that's going to play pretty well against Sigarda's Imprisonment. Sacrifice their pacified creature for extra value. Gift of Fangs, kill the Catgeist. I'm actually a pretty big fan of that, if they don't have another removal spell. But they're holding 3 mana up here, so we probably don't just try to Catgeist the Lantern Bearer against somebody who just killed a Catgeist. I don't think they would have killed the Catgeist if they didn't have instant speed removal here, unless they just didn't know it comes back from grave. Let's see. This feels like instant speed removal, but it could just be the blood token and the Wedding Invitation. I'm not going to play under the assumption that my opponent is just playing super, super poorly. I will play under the assumption that they had decent reasoning for killing the Catgeist there, and they knew that it would come back onto the Lantern Bearer. We'll go for the Scattered Thoughts. Unless they tap themselves out at some point and play like a 4/4 or something. Yeah, the fact that they're still not playing anything right now means I think they're holding up mana for instant speed removal rather than playing more creatures. So they definitely had a plan in mind to stop the cat-like curiosity from going onto the Lantern Bearer. Could Wretched Throng and Thirst for Discovery in one turn. I want to Thirst first in case I hit a better 2-mana card. I think I do. If I hit a Dorothy or something, I'll play that first. Okay, hit another Wretched Throng, which is a little bit awkward. We did draw another Sigarda's Imprisonment, which is great. Dollhouse of Horrors. Exile a creature card from their grave, get a copy that's a 0/0 with +1/+1 for each construct you control. That is super strong, but they have no creatures in their grave right now, so I can just kind of make sure they never do. Just don't kill any of their creatures and we'll be fine. We get to draw a card here, guaranteed now. They're going to 100% removal spell whatever I put this Catgeist onto. After they untap. I put it on Wretched Throng then? If I just put it on Wretched Throng, then they could just hold Epicure back and they don't have to spend their removal spell, so I probably have to put it on the Lantern Bearer, even though I'm almost 100% sure they do have the removal spell. Another Scattered Thoughts is not bad at all. Okay, I'm not going to imprison anything, so let's just drop a Traveling Minister and a Wretched Throng. Alright, there's the Parasitic Grasp for the Lantern Bearer. That they've been holding up for quite some time. And they're going to pass turn with double red up. Really rather not trade into the Epicure because it puts a creature into their grave. For Parasitic Grasp value, so do I even just... I don't think I Diver Scab it, but I could Lantern Bearer a Throng and Traveling Minister that as well. And just keep hitting with that by itself. Okay, they have a Flame Blast Bolt and a Parasitic Grasp. Well, I cannot stop that. Alright, this is pretty excellent. So I was going to do all that and then Scattered Thoughts. Do I still just do that? Probably. Can Scattered Thoughts during their end step though, because I will have 0 mana up after the Scattered Thoughts, so no reason to do it right now. Can wait until we see what they play, because it might affect what cards I want to draw. If they play a ton of creatures on the ground to use with the Dollhouse of Horrors, then I might want to just exclusively hit flyers. I kind of already want to exclusively hit flyers, but... you know, maybe I want to try to find a counterspell or something. Who knows? Okay, Ragged Recluse. That's going to be very good if they hit a blood token. To discard a card and flip it. Oh my god. Flyer. Even if I Binding Geist one of these things, it's going to come back as a construct after they chump block with it, so... I'm not in love with putting the Spectral Binding in the grave. I don't think I'm going to use that, but I am very happy to have both flyers in hand. Usually I'd be like, oh, slam dunk, 2 flyers in hand, and I get a spell in my grave, but I'm like, I'm probably not going to cast this spell in the grave. So let's drop Wanderlight Spirit and Quartermaster, put the counters onto the Spirit and the Throng, and just pass the turn for now and then start attacking with flyers. Close out the game in the sky. And they're just going to scoop them up. They just hit a bunch of lands. They only have a couple dorks on the ground. And they're about to take 7 a turn in the sky. So they are over it. We are going to be 6-1 now. Very far in the money. And heading into the final boss with 2 rounds in the chamber. 2 shots at a 7-win run. Twice in a row from Crimson Vow. That would be super sweet. But no matter what happens here, we cannot be unhappy with 1,800 gems and 5 packs minimum. Alright, here we are on the play for what may be the final boss. We've got a Dorothy nice and early. I don't know if we want to turn 2 Dorothy, because then we have nothing to put Dorothy onto, which is a little awkward. So I'll start with the Wretched Throng, because that can get them for multiple attacks. Dorothy just hits them 1 time and then leaves forever. Dorothy's just like, alright, see ya. Peace out. We'll come back for revenge later. So, play Dorothy now. I really want to have a flyer to slap Dorothy onto. Let's drop Binding Geist for now. Seems fine. They're going to Voltaic Visionary and play the land that they hit off the Visionary, which turns it into a 4-3. A 4-3 that can't block, luckily, but still. A 4-3 nonetheless. Sporecrawler trades into Binding Geist and draws them a card, which is pretty good value for them. Not in love with that. I could imprison the Sporecrawler and just hit them for 5, but that'd be the only spell I cast this turn. Yeah, shuts off all their blockers, puts them down to 11. Which is kind of low. I'll go for it here. This is already a game that could have gone very, very differently. There were tons of different lines we could have chosen from. Another pretty complex game here so far. Could have been on Dorothy into Thirst for Discovery or Dorothy into Imprisonment. Many options nice and early. Oh god, Creepy Puppeteer. That card is devastating. Luckily, it didn't actually get them any extra damage in this turn. Because it's attacking with another card that's already a 4/3, and it probably will again next turn. I might even just Dorothy on blocks. If I hit them for 5 now, and I draw into a plains for this Quartermaster, I just kill them next turn. I also kill them if I put Dorothy onto something next turn. I might even Thirst for Discovery and hope to hit a plains. That might be extra greedy. I have 7 plains left in the deck and 6 islands, so it would be triple blue, double blue and a plains, double blue and a white, Thirst for Discovery, hope to hit a plains, and another land out of these 3 cards. Yeah, that's probably extra greedy. I think I play Dorothy and hit for 5. And then we've got some potential ways to kill them on the crackback here if we don't die. They're going for it. All right, we'll trade with Creepy Puppeteer and have the Retribution in graveyard. They're down to 6. We've got Dorothy's Retribution in grave. It's a Pack Song Pup. They need instant speed removal to not die. Or I could play Quartermaster. That makes these big enough they have to chump with the pup, but it doesn't kill them this turn. I'm gonna go all out here. No instant speed removal. Ah, they've got the instant speed removal. Bummer. Well, we're not dead either. Take 5 on the crackback unless they have a combat trick. Or another haste card. Infestation Expert is big. God, Infestation Expert's actually perfect. If it was any other creature, we could just Imprisonment for lethal. But being specifically Infestation Expert, which gives them 2 blockers off 1 card, we can't crack through that. Which means we're dead. Dang. Should have went for Quartermaster. Quartermaster would have got them. Oh, that's a bummer way to end it. But that'll do it. 6 and 2, heading into the actual final boss, the final game of Magic, win or lose. Alright, here we are on the play for the final game, Wretched Throng, turn 2, and then we're just going to draw a million cards. Play whatever we draw into. Playing against another blue deck here. Blue-red it'll be with a turn 2 Kessick Flamebreather. Best card for that archetype. Let's slam down a Nurturing Presence so I can keep getting damage in here even though it's going to be less mana efficient. Makes my Throng able to send in against the 3 toughness card every time I play a creature. Storm Chaser Drake. Okay, that's another really good card for that archetype. Yeah, and they're going to combo off now with the Storm Chaser Drake. They already draw 2 from Ancestral Anger, drawing 1 plus Storm Chaser Drake, drawing 1. I can't shut off its ability to draw them extra cards. I can shut off its ability to attack or block, which doesn't matter that much, so I think I have to just Scattered Thoughts here. Voltaic Visionary hits the board. Go for Scattered Thoughts. Maybe get Syncopated for 2. We do not get Syncopated. Grab our own Counterspell and a Heron of Hope, I think. Yeah, if I hit a land, hit a land, then I can hold up Geistlight Snare and cast Heron of Hope in one turn, which is sweet. Sick. We hit a land. Problem is, Storm Chaser Drake triggers even if I counter the spell that's targeting it, which is so good. Alright, let's try to cast Heron of Hope. It does resolve. We'll send in the squad. Trade Voltaic Visionary into the Wretched Throng. So we'll draw another copy of Wretched Throng. Oh, that actually stops our Geistlight Snare from going off because we don't have an enchantment on board anymore. Oh god, and they resolve a Whispering Wizard through it. Oh, I guess I shouldn't have attacked with Wretched Throng. I forgot that that was our only enchantment on board. That might have cost us the game here. Might be on the double punt 6-1 into 6-3 to end it off. Because we do not have hard removal once things resolve. And that's probably is just it. Because I'm not going to break through a million 1/1 spirits now. Can still imprison the wizard and then exile it next turn, but that still gives them another turn of getting 1/1 flyers. For chump blocks all day long. Guess I imprison the wizard and then I have an enchantment on board again to hold up Snare for just 1 mana. But again, I can't stop them from getting another spirit right now. It won't stop the triggered ability of Whispering Wizard. Luckily, they only get 1 more spirit, because it only triggers once per turn. They could get 2 more if they play a sorcery now and then an instant the second I untap. They cast nothing right now, though, which means maximum of 1 more spirit from the Whispering Wizard, and I think I need to just exile it right now. Cradle of Safety. So they get a 1/1 flyer and draw a card no matter what, deal damage to me no matter what. And they have enough mana to pay for me countering Cradle of Safety anyway. And it's only hexproof till end of turn, so it doesn't matter that much. Making the Drake a 3/2. Am I okay with Drake trading into Heron of Hope? I'm pretty sure I am. So I just send that thing in. Well, no, because then I take a lot on the crackback. Jesus Christ, a Braid also? I'm surprised they didn't cast one of these during their turn then and get 1 more spirit. Well, let's snare the Abrade. Reckless Impulse. Shoot me in the face. It's a Lantern Bearer and a land. They can drop both of those down real easily. Send in the Storm Chaser Drake. Well, I mean, I'll trade with that one if possible. Another Cradle of Safety. Yeah, we are so far behind here. They have just fully popped off. Alright, I don't think I played this game perfectly. The one big turn being I shouldn't have attacked with that Wretched Throng. That way I could have held up the Geistlight Snare, but other than that, I really don't think this matchup looks super winnable for our deck. This is just a really well-built blue-red spells deck, completely comboing off this game on us. Alright, well, we get rid of all their Cradles of Safety on that Storm Chaser Drake. That's not nothing. But if anything, I think the winnable game was last game. I just got a little greedy on our last play, trying to go for the immediate lethal when I had a safer line with Quartermaster, going for a 2-turn lethal. The 2-turn lethal, obviously in hindsight 100% would have won the game, but I think even at the time I should have probably considered that as the safer line. Plays around a lot more stuff. Probably do need some more flying blockers. I'm down to 10 right now, so let's not Scattered Thoughts. Let's Wanderlight Spirit and Blood Token the planes away. I guess I could hit a 1-drop here. I've still got a Lantern Bearer in my deck and a Traveling Minister, so I guess it's a 50-50 on each, whether I need a blue or a white untapped. Save the blue if I hit a Lantern Bearer. Nope. Another Abrade. Ooh, it's wide open too. Double Anger, double Abrade, double Impulse, double Cradle of Safety. Those are the cards you want. Now they can put a Catgeist on the Storm Chaser Drake if I block there. If I don't block there, I take 1 extra damage and they just draw a card right now anyway. They draw a card either way. They draw a card from damaging me or they draw a card from casting it on Drake. And then they draw another card next turn. But they draw another card next turn either way. Because it hits me next turn or it gets cast on Drake. There's an Imprisonment for the Drake, but we still take 2 in the sky. See if I can hit a Lantern Bearer off of Scattered Thoughts. Double Binding Geist is actually pretty real. Can I take the Traveling Minister and the land then? Because now I can imprison the Drake. Binding the Spirit and then binding the Lantern Bearer as well. Again, I'm still probably dead. Because they just need to cast a couple spells and Flame Breather will kill me. Oh, yep, I mean, Ancestral Anger copy number 3 will definitely do it. Yeah. Alright. Didn't play the last game out super well, but that was an absurd blue-red non-creature spell deck there. That is what you want. That is the blue-red combo deck in the format. We certainly got comboed out pretty hard. Almost felt like playing against Cycling in Ikoria. Well, that's going to end our run with this deck. I think this deck was a huge overperformer. This was another deck that I considered probably a 4-3, 5-3 reasonable deck here. And it could have went all the way if we played perfectly. Still made it to 6-3, which is an incredible run. Overall, pretty happy with that. I think our big errors today were in gameplay. I think the deck ended up playing really well. I'm pretty happy with how I drafted it. Loved the Scattered Thoughts with the counter spells here. Loved having 2 imprisonments to actually have some way to deal with stuff that's resolved. Dorothy was a bit of an underperformer, but that could just be biased from losing the game trying to cast Dorothy's Retribution. That could be... certainly could be a thing there, so there's that to consider. Overall, yeah, I think I drafted pretty well. Love how this deck played out. Loved the deck build that we went with. The big thing were just gameplay user errors. It's possible that we could have won like all 3 of our losses if we were omniscient and we just knew the future, knew exactly what was going to happen. Maybe there were some really, really tight lines that could have won every single game. The only one that I think, looking back on, that I definitely could have won, that had a line that I considered and didn't go for, was Game 2. Game 2 was the most obvious game that we could have won, because I considered going for the Quartermaster safer play there, but kind of wanted to just try to get the game over with Retribution. The problem with that was if I don't go for the Quartermaster line and the Retribution line doesn't work, I end up with 0 flyers on the board, and I end up down to like 2 life on our opponent's next crackback, which means I just don't have the time to reestablish a board state with the flyers to chip in for lethal. So I really should have considered that line a little longer and considered what goes wrong if the Dorothy line doesn't get there, what goes wrong with if the Quartermaster line doesn't get there, And I feel like the Dorothy line was just too risky to be worth it. Sure, if they had nothing, we would kill them immediately that turn. But if they had literally anything, the Quartermaster line would have been much better. So that one really didn't pan out well for us and probably cost us the event. I think that game was the most winnable one because, again, it was a line that I considered, and if we were in the alternate universe where I took that line, we found out what they had, which was a Flame Blast Bolt. Flame Blast Bolt would not have beaten the Quartermaster play, so unless they had another removal spell we didn't get to see, we would have killed them in 2 turns with the Quartermaster line. So had the out to victory there, did not take it, went for the incorrect, greedier line there, and lost that game accordingly. So that game had a very clear alternate line that would have been a path to victory. Maybe game 1, game 3, we could have won again with perfect plays, but those were a lot more nebulous, where you'd have to look back and replay several turns instead of just one pivotal moment. So can't say with a certainty on that one, unless I spent some time studying the footage and going back over the games or everything. But probably one of those games could have been won somewhere, somehow, with a few different plays along the line. Who knows? Still happy with a 6-3 run and still very happy with this deck's performance. I didn't think it looked that incredible, but it still gets as close to a 7-win run as you can get without quite making it there. It's a little bit of a bummer there, going 6-1 to 6-3, but it is what it is. Still an excellent run today. We're going to grab our 1,800 gems, our 5 packs, and just run with it. But that's going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons very much for supporting this channel, as well as you for watching the videos. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.